Today we are kicking things off with our webinar called Making Your Busy Season Count, 3 Things That Cost You Big. And your host today is the WDDA, and Katie Gregg is leading off this project. She is the industry and member engagement go-to person. That is her title, and she is helping to steer the ship behind the scenes to help you bring all this beautiful content for you here in these live webinars. And my name is Madeline McRae, and I'm going to be leading off this presentation for you today. And today what we're going to be digging into in this webinar is a costly mistake that most people make when they're really busy. And we know that this is busy season, and so we want to make sure that you get the most out of your time here. We're going to be talking about your #1 most neglected opportunity to fill your future appointment books. And we're also going to be talking about some key structures to help you sell more on the spot without feeling salesy. I know that feeling salesy is one of the leading objections that people have in the sales process as the sellers, as the ones doing the selling. They don't want to push their clients. They don't want to feel salesy. And before we get started, let me just share a couple of quick housekeeping things with you. In the control panel, it looks like a little black box at the bottom of your screen. There are a couple of things. There's a Q&A button, and you can be entering your Q&A there, and I will absolutely be here. I've got a little bit more than an hour's worth of time scheduled, so if you can stay a little longer, I'll be open for Q&A afterwards, and we will answer all of your questions. My strong recommendation is just ask them when you're inspired to ask them, because it's going to really help us to fill them out. Even if I answer them as I go, I'll see them afterwards, and it'll help me fill in some of the gaps for you, just in case anything wasn't clear during this presentation. I'm here live with you, so thank you so much. I see lots of participants. Thank you so much for being here live with us today. I know this is a first-time experience as hosted by the WDDA, but you're in good hands here with me, and I'll tell you a little bit about who I am and what I'm bringing to the table for you today. Also, we're going to be doing a couple of polls today. I love polls, one of my favorite things. And there's a little box down in the bottom, and it says polling. It looks like a little bar chart. So if you want to participate in a poll, we are going to first ask one quick question about how are you primarily selling. And you can vote in this poll. As long as you click that little polling box, you'll be able to vote in this poll in real time, and then I'll go ahead and share those responses with you whenever people have voted. So it just helps me to be able to adjust the content a little bit based on the audience and what your needs are. So feel free to log into that poll and click that little button and go ahead and vote for how are you primarily selling, in-home or B2B. And with B2B, you all are super aware of your own industry targets, like what that exactly means. So in-home residential, B2B, often commercial or to builders, etc. So feel free to vote for those, and I'm going to go on and kick off, and then I'll end this poll and share that with you in just a few minutes. So today, why did the WDDA hire us? Why did they bring us in to do these presentations for you? So my name, as I said, is Madeline McRae, and I'm a speaker, coach, and consultant. And my area of specialty is really growth and process. I did a presentation last year at Dealer Day, and I'm excited to be back for more. I'm personally responsible for multi-million-dollar sales growth with dealers. I know how to help small businesses, mid-sized businesses really zero in on the most compelling and successful strategies to help them grow. And I've done this across thousands of businesses, but very specifically, hundreds of dealers, help them zero in, grow their business, improve their bottom line, improve their top line. Top line growth is really my jam. And I'm here to share with you today some of those strategies that I know work, okay? So when I first started my career, I was not this polished professional that you saw in the last picture. This is me, real time, living in Southwest Florida, and I had no experience in business whatsoever. I was fresh out of college. I had just gotten a degree in English literature because I thought that I was going to be an editor. Little did I know how competitive that field was, and all of the people who were competing for those jobs were coming out of a lot of internships, and I hadn't done any of that. And I did try my hand at writing and editing, and I realized very quickly that that was not the right career path for me. So I actually got a job offer from a company in the hurricane protection space, and it became like an instant love affair with an entrepreneur, an instant love affair with small businesses. And I was just fascinated by this whole new world of small businesses and the dedication, the drive, the ambition that all these businesses were putting into their day-to-day operations and really making success happen for themselves, it was incredibly exciting. And I wanted to learn everything I could. And I knew that selling was a key component of success, because if you're not selling anything, you really have no business to speak of. And the reason I learned that lesson so quickly is the revenue of the startup that I joined was pre-revenue. That means they hadn't sold anything yet. And it was only when the sales started happening that opportunities started to grow in the business. And it's really when they started to have a legitimate business. So one of the things that I noticed, so the company that I was working with had was a B2B business. So I was working with the small businesses who were retailing the product. And there would be two different businesses, one on one side of the street and the other one on the other side of the street. And one would be thriving and growing and having all of the success, and the other would really be struggling, like hardly making payroll, hardly keeping their doors open, while their competitor just across the street, literally doors away from them, selling very similar products, was just tanking and suffering and not really succeeding at all. And I became very, very fascinated by that and curious about what it was that was making the successful company succeed and the underperforming company really struggle. And over the course of the next decade, I became a detective. I wanted to know, not really detective, but I really, really wanted to know what were the secrets of those successful businesses. And at the time, I believed that there was going to be one thing. I believed that I was going to find some one thing that those successful businesses were doing that the others weren't. And I was really on a quest for this thing. Fast forward several years in my career, I had a small independent manufacturers repping firm. I started, the entrepreneurial bug bit me hard. I couldn't be around all these business owners who are really, the go-getters, making it happen and loving their drive, and then not be bit by the bug myself. So I started my own business, and I was recruited by a company called Somfy Systems. And they're a world leader in tubular motors and controls, and they touch a lot of industries. And I got a lot of opportunity to work more and more and more closely with dealers who I got this incredible behind the scenes access to the most successful businesses and what they were doing and how they were doing it and what was really the differentiating factors. And as I was gaining all of this access, I was beginning to notice that there wasn't really one thing. And I'll never forget the moment where I had this revelation about success and what it takes to be successful. I had just received a really big promotion. I was actually the most quickly promoted person within Somfy North America, which at the time was a $65 million organization. I went from an outside sales rep to an executive leader in 18 months. So that created some, really cool growth for me. But I remember when I got that fancy title in that fancy office, and I suddenly went from managing a small but high visibility project to managing a team of 25 people. I was in my early 20s or mid 20s, I guess, at that point. And I was sitting at my desk waiting for my boss to show up and tell me how to be an executive leader, waiting for the HR manager to give me a debrief on how to be a leader, waiting for one of my peers to come in and tell me. I knew it was going to happen. I felt like with certainty it had to happen. And I bet you all can guess, that moment never came. And I waited, not physically sitting at my desk, but emotionally waited for that moment for at least 2 weeks. And when it dawned on me, I was sitting at my desk, and it dawned on me, no one's coming. Everyone is making it up as they go along. Oh my gosh. Even these high-level executives at this big company are doing exactly the same things that the dealers were doing that I was so fascinated by, making it up as you went along. And what I noticed was that success is not just one thing. Success is all of the things that come together in harmony and knowing how to leverage those things for your own best benefit. So I was really excited about my career at Somfy. It went really well. And a few years ago, I actually created a company. After having my son, I had a baby, I took some time off, And then I created this company called McRae Coaching and Consulting. And we developed a program called Fast Track Sales Systems. And that is the program that has been responsible for training hundreds of dealers on how to grow and improve their businesses by adding systems and structures to what they're already doing well in terms of sales. So what I'm going to teach you today comes from all of the secrets of these top performers that I've had access to for well over 13 years, as well as from my direct access to dealers in the industry, really figuring out those keys to success. Because although everyone is using, that make it up as you go along and winging it to some degree, once you've developed something that's working, adding the systems, adding the structure, tapping in to some of those best practices, I know that the WDDA has conducted some amazing surveys and some amazing conversations with you to get some of the feedback about what you're craving to learn. And some of those best practices is what I'm going to share with you today, because it's truly my mission to take those secrets, because they're really not secrets, to take those top performers, share them as widely as I possibly can, and to help and inspire business owners to make it easier and more predictable for you to have and achieve success. So what I want to focus on with you today, I want to start with this really key factor. And the truth here is that there are really only 3 ways to grow your business. You can get more customers, you can have those each individual customers spend more with you by getting more money per sale, and you can have those customers come back to you again and again by getting more frequent purchases from them. In every business, in any industry, in any channel, those are the only 3 pathways to growth. And I remember the first time that I heard that statement, I felt like challenging it because I felt that can't be true. And I went on a long journey of trying to disprove this premise. And the more I looked at it, the more I turned it in my mind, the more I saw the truth of this. And so what we're going to do, we're going to zero in on some of these and going to unravel where some of these success secrets are hiding for you. And before I go there, let me go ahead and end this poll. And I will share with you, share the results so that you can see what the results were. So 64% of you are doing B2B sales, and 36% of you are doing in-home sales. So what I'm going to say as I go through this presentation, for those of you specifically who are doing B2B sales, some of this is geared towards more of those residential sales. So just listen for the gold. Right? Some of this stuff might not be brand new for you, but when I'm coaching, when I'm training, especially established businesses, listen for the gold. See, what does this mean for you? Jump to that practical application of how can I use this specifically in my business? And whatever it is that inspires you, that one little piece of inspiration or something that you weren't aware of before, capture that for yourself and make sure that you take it and use it tangibly. Because only when you use the information that it really becomes a solid training. Other than that, it's just entertainment. And I'm sure you can find a much more entertaining way of spending an hour. So what I'm here for is to give you some of these best practices. And I know how this is busy season. So the reason that we're giving you this content right now is because when your car is in motion, you can course correct. You can pivot and turn and move. When you're in park, when you have no leads coming in, we have no clients coming in, then you don't have as much access to the transformational power of some of these quick little tips and tricks and ideas that I'm going to share with you today. So we thought that season, although it's busy, carving out this time and tapping into a couple of the things that you can add to your current process to tweak, shift, improve can give you a really big return on the investment of your time here with us today. So in these 3 ways, of course, more customers. We all know what that means, increasing the number of leads that you have. But one of the things that people don't think about is improving the conversion, not just your sales conversion, but your actual appointment booking. There's 2 levels of conversion that happen inside of your business. There's when that person is a hand raiser, converting that hand raiser into a booked appointment. And then when you have the booked appointment, doing a better job of converting that sale. And then, of course, to get more customers, you can always increase your leads. And I've consistently seen businesses who claim to have a leads problem, and what they end up happening is a leads management problem. They have plenty of leads coming in, but they're not converting those leads as well. And it's a really big leaky profit leak spot in a lot of small businesses. The next one is more money per sale. So this one is the more of the obvious one, right? You can sell more products, more services at a higher value. This, of course, is not licensed to gouge, right? We all know that. We're all people of integrity. You know, that's the goal here. That's one of our premises. But it's increasing your average sales price. And one of the key factors of increasing your average sales price is becoming laser focused on where you're starting. A lot of the clients I've done around 8 polls regarding how are people managing their numbers? Are you managing your numbers? And consistently, sadly, 76% of our industry, the home professionals industry as a whole, they don't manage their numbers. They don't run their numbers. So get in control of your numbers and start to drive those results. Remember, you can have more products, more services, and you can have higher value products. Depending on who your ideal client is and what exactly your product mix looks like, you can have a staggered layers of product that appeal to a wider audience. That will help you to increase your average sales price and will help you with your conversion. And last but certainly not least, more frequent purchasing, securing repeat business from your clients. Now, dependent, again, upon the products that you're selling, some of your clients may only buy from you once. Their client lifetime value means how many times that person buys in their lifetime and what that represents in your business. Maybe it's once, but don't forget that once people have a great experience with you, when they need your products again, maybe they move to a new home, maybe they purchase doors from you, now they're ready to go for windows, whatever it is, and especially for those of you who are in B2B sales, this bucket is gold for you. The lifetime value of your client, being able to secure their repeat business, not just to hope for it, but really to secure it by some things that you do in the way that you service your client, that maximizes the potential lifetime value of that client exponentially. And for those of you who are in B2B, your client is actually that other business, right? Your secondary client is the homeowner, but securing the business from your B2B partners, your B2B clients, is pivotal to your ongoing success. And figuring out where you can secure it, not just hope for it, but truly secure it in your process, in your approach to selling, is a major potential avenue for revenue inside of your business. So in order to be able to make more money from the leads that you have, you really have to think about managing the entire life cycle of your leads. A lot of times we look at our leads from a single dimension and we forget that there's an entire life cycle around them. And I want to dive into this quickly for a moment. Let me just take a quick water. Excuse me. So dive into this with you for a moment so that we can look at these different stages. So the way I see it is there's 5 stages in each of your leads. First, you have those hand raisers. That means that you did a good job advertising, that your social media is working, that your strategy around getting new leads is working, right? People are raising their hands saying, I think I might need what you got. And the next piece, and this is one of those pieces that people throw away as just a dumb little administrative, not very important element, is booking that appointment. We're going to go into that a lot today. And then the next piece, which is also something that's a throwaway. So I was teaching a live event about, I guess, 6 months ago in a room of 150 professionals who, business owners, and I asked everyone to stand up, and I asked those who were confirming their appointments to sit down. 50% of the room sat down, or those who were not confirming, those who were not confirming to sit down. 50% sat down, right? The possibility of a mistake, of someone not showing up for an appointment, of someone forgetting that you were there, of not having as much of a committed buyer increases exponentially when you don't confirm your appointments. You know, making the appointment is one thing, but confirming the appointment is a second step. And little tip here, when you have someone, a person going out to that job site to actually run a sales appointment, give your prospect someone to hope to see. Give them the face. Give them a video of that person. Give them something that will transform this really basic administrative task into another opportunity to cement their love for you and their desire to work with you. So when I asked if anyone in the room, of those 50% of the room still standing, were sending an image, a picture or a video, some information about the person, the salesperson, want to know how many people were left standing? 3 people out of 150 business owners. So my question for you is, what if one of those 3 were you? Okay, what if that could be you? And then, of course, we've got the appointment, the all-important appointment. That's really where your magic is going to happen, and your repeat and referral business. Don't forget about that, because that's a really significant bucket inside of your business. So the appointment, as I like to say, is the heartbeat of your business. It means that this is the place where the sale and the service meet together, because this is every factor where the sale and service meet together, because without the sale, you don't get to the service. And most businesses, unfortunately, truly bleed more leads than they think. So you might be bleeding more leads than you think. And I want to challenge your own assumption. If you feel maybe you're a pro at this step, but the fact that I've seen out in the field is that most people are not. And really what factors into this, especially for those of you who have small teams, right? Maybe you're the owner operator. Maybe you have only a team of installers and maybe a salesperson, but you don't really have a big administrative team, or that an admin is only part-time, or you're a husband-wife duo and you're out running and gunning. Think about the things that can make you miss a lead. And when I say miss a lead, I mean when they're excited and they raise their hand to say, I think that I might be interested. If you're not capturing that lead right in that moment, we are in such an instant gratification society that you have a very small window while that lead is piping hot to get it booked. And the fact of the matter is, you are exponentially, I think it's 8 times more likely to close the sale when you're the first one to book the appointment. The first one. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the first one to run an appointment, but the first one to respond to that lead proactively. And on top of that, you only have 24 hours to reach out to that brand new lead, cold lead, reach out to them, connect with them before they've completely forgotten your name, right? Completely forgotten about you, because they're moving on to bigger, better things, right? So think about the factors in your business that could make you miss a lead. Being on an appointment, being on another phone call, working with a vendor, managing an install, handling emails, after hours contacts. Right? What if someone calls you at 7 p.m. or sends you a voicemail or writes you a message or leaves you a Facebook message to puts a post on your social media asking you for an appointment? What happens with those? Right? Do they just languish? They're there, they're ready for you. Being busy and buried. And then, of course, phone tag. And the reason I bring this up during your busy season is this is the time when you have the most leads. And this is the time when the most leads are leaked, when they drip through your fingers because you didn't put a process in place to make sure that you're capturing them. And this little piece in and of itself can be a huge opportunity inside of your business. And remember, when we miss those leads, when we're not there to answer their calls, when we're not right on it, we get into this weird, I call it the hamster wheel of follow-up, because what ends up happening is follow-up becomes a project and a time suck that we end up giving a ton of time to it. When it was a quick little task, it would have just been checked off and done, but then it becomes this bigger project and we have to devote more resources, more time, more energy, remember to get back in front of them. And it's much harder to do when we're on this hamster wheel. So I have a little story for you. This is Julie's story. I really love her story because Julie is an ambitious business owner. She looks very kind and friendly. Don't let her smile fool you. She's a firecracker. And she was ready to grow her business pretty aggressively. And she had a growth plan in place. And what she hired me for was to help her bring on additional salespeople and make sure that they were really well trained. And what we did is we looked at her business and we evaluated her available time for training. And I found that she was not going to have enough time to devote to training her new people. So she could have hired the best people, but you all know if you don't train people well, then you're not setting them up for the type of success that you wish. And we did not want to relive a past experience where she brought on people and they didn't work well, right? So we found a key place inside of her business that she could let go of something. You all know, hard to let go of the things that your baby, like in your business, you've been working on it for a long time and working in it for a long time, and it's hard to give up those pieces, but we finally convinced her, I convinced her, she convinced herself, I helped her see that she really needed more administrative support. And what she hired was someone whose only job it was to answer the phone, that's it, no matter what. This person actually was a home-based employee, a part-time employee, but she carried a company cell phone at all times. No matter the time of day or night, she was on call to answer that phone. And what ended up happening was Julie had a pretty big budget set aside to increase her ad campaigns, to increase her lead volume, to handle another salesperson. She was the owner-operator with the sales responsibility. And when she plugged up this leak, what she ended up having, this is her words, not mine, my calendar got so booked that I had to postpone my plans to grow my business by increasing my ad budget. In other words, she got so busy, the time that we thought that we were carving out for her to be able to train salespeople got more than booked by the increase in the lead volume. And what we've had to do is to figure out a better process and to not to increase her ad volume. So she was making a ton more sales with exactly the same leads, because more of her leads were having that initial conversion from interest into appointments. And she thought she was great at it, right? So she plugged this leak and suddenly her calendar got so booked that we had to delay the process of adding on a salesperson because she didn't have the time to handle it. Like, good problem to have. Don't worry, we've taken care of her. She now has a team. She's all good. But, you know, short term and good problem to have, because now she knew where that leak was and it never will leak again. Here's a really stunning fact. An new inbound lead is followed up on average 1.7 times before it's abandoned. Think about yourself. Think about your own experience of working with a vendor, if you're B2B, or of working with a salesperson, with a homeowner, if you're B2C. If you're trying to get something done in your house, choose something that's not in your area. So let's say you're trying to get, kitchen cabinets redone. Let's just say you want to redo your kitchen, trying to get your cabinets redone. If you reach out to people, do they respond to you? Do you have to chase them? So many times we think about, I don't want to inconvenience my client. I don't want to alienate this potential buyer. Don't think about following up with them and being tenacious about getting that appointment as burdensome. They've reached out to you. They want your help. Think about how it feels when you were like, oh yeah, that's right, I was going to call that person back. I was going to call that person back. I was going to call that person back. And you never did. As a consumer, right? Be the consumer for the moment. That cabinet guy you're going to reach out to, and you keep forgetting to call him back. And then he suddenly catches you in a moment when you're free. And it's like, oh man, yes, thanks for calling me. Doesn't it feel like service when someone does the legwork for you? Yes, it does. So be the vendor that you would want to have. And don't be shy about following up with people, because that is really where that tenacity, that calling people back, will really help you stand out from your competitors, and you'll get more appointments booked that will lead you to more business. Right now, you have leads coming in. Figure out your strategy to make the most of those inbound leads, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips to do that. When you don't do this, it's more of a costly mistake than we think. So I just shared with you Julie's story. And yes, that meant that she was missing opportunities. Her appointment wasn't getting booked up. Her appointments weren't getting booked up, and she is spending ad money to get those leads and not converting them into anything, right? Not into appointments, not into sales. But think even bigger than that. That's only the tip of the iceberg. You have invested in some hard costs: branding, a website, marketing materials, pictures and images. Have you gone out to homeowners and gotten beautiful videos? Have you hired a copywriter? Then think about your advertising. But don't forget the soft cost of that lead, your time and energy, planning around it for your marketing, for your process, for how you're going to handle it. Vetting vendors to help you with all aspects of your marketing, from social media to copywriting to images to website, etc. Then managing those vendors, reviewing their results, and then adjusting and revising all of their proposals and their activities, and seeing what's working, what's not, and retooling. Those things are intangible costs, especially your time and energy. And if you were able to make more of those leads, your time and energy would be getting a greater return on that initial investment that you're making in your marketing strategy. So we all count the cost of our leads from the perspective of our advertising budget, but think bigger than that, because these leads are even more valuable than you might be giving them credit for. And last but certainly not least is the opportunity cost, right? Without getting in front of your leads, you can't serve them. So it's not just that you let that lead go cold and that was a $60 lead that went cold plus all that additional cost. It's that the potential earning from that lead is gone. It's gone. And if you haven't even captured more about them where you can put them into a nurture sequence and at least hopefully get them in the long term, you've really, really done yourself a really big disservice, and you're now throwing good money after bad. So you definitely don't want to do that inside of your business. And simply because the appointment is the heartbeat of your business, especially during season, it should be all hands on deck to help you book as many as you possibly can, to increase that first round of conversion, the conversion from that hand raiser into a booked appointment. Like, that should be something that you cross-train all of your people on. You, if you're solo owner operator, and all your team members, whether they're sales or customer service or whoever they are, make sure that everyone knows the importance of these booking appointments and that they're cross-trained to do it in case everyone's busy, right? That if the phone rings, someone can pick it up and handle this task. And then when you plug this profit leak, you do end up with a stronger flow of sales. And I have a little story to share with you about that. So this is David. He is one of our prior clients. He's a COO of about a $5 million business. And when I started working with him, we were talking about their sales conversion. We spent a lot of time and effort on that. We built a really cool training program for their sales teams. But one of the pieces, the unexpected gift that they got in working with me, was that we adjusted their cadence for following up with those inbound leads. So what they were doing before, and I'm sure that you all can relate to this, is that 8 a.m. their office would open and their receptionist would get all the voicemails and all the emails from the prior day that weren't responded to and would start dialing them. What are people doing at 8 o'clock in the morning? People are dropping off their kids, they're running around, they're getting settled into their job, they're doing all these things, and they had a very low conversion rate, right? Clearly they were doing $4 million, they were doing something, right? But their conversion rate of these appointments was pretty darn low, and they weren't even tracking it. And so they added a couple of things. They added the strategies that I'm going to give you today, and what they ended up with is they increased their appointment bookings by 7.5%, right? That's huge. 7.5% is huge, right, with that volume of leads. And it was only a few tiny tweaks that I'm going to give you right now. So one of the things that they did, and this is what we're going to call $1 million tip, and I'll tell you the story behind it. But one of the things that they did is they adjusted the timing for those phone calls. When is the best time to call your client? So statistically speaking, you are going to get a tremendously higher volume of answered calls between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. than you will ever get at 8:30 in the morning. So if you don't want to abandon those 8 a.m. phone calls because you're doing a pretty decent job with them, at least add in a call back between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. The other piece of it is, do not be afraid to embrace multiple types of technology. Do not shy away from text message. And that's this $1 million tip. Let me tell you this tip. So I was approached, remember that speaking engagement I told you about? At that same speaking engagement, actually it was the second day, I did the same thing 2 days in a row. I was approached by this lady, the most unassuming person ever, and I never expected what she said to me. So she came up to me and she said, Madeline, I'm so inspired by what you shared. And I was sharing a sales presentation. She said, I have something that I want to tell you, and I want you to tell as many people as you can, because I credit this to $1 million sales growth in my business. And she also had a $5 million business. And she said, here's the thing. Every single one of our leads, every single one who reaches out to us after 5 p.m. gets a text message. And she said, we always say, especially if it's, between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m., we're sorry to interrupt you at home, sorry to interrupt family time, but we saw that you just contacted us. And they make it immediate. She does a very similar thing to Julie that I was telling you about I was telling you about earlier in the presentation. She gives some of her team members a cell phone that you're responsible for responding. So when they get an email, they instantly generate a text message. So I'm a fan of responding to people on the technology platform that they reached out to. If they called you, call them. If they emailed you, email them. If they text you, text them. But in this case, she doesn't do that. Everyone gets a text message, and she instantly has them book an appointment. Here's the thing. If a client is calling you at 10 p.m., they're still awake and they're worrying about this project that they're calling you about. So it's not inappropriate to reach them. Say, hey, I saw that you just reached out to us. Sorry to interrupt you late at night, but I'm awake too, here to help you. Would love to get out to your home and see how we can help you. Can I book you for an appointment? And then you use exactly the same booking strategy that you use. You go from wide parameters to short parameters, and you always give options so people end up booking, right? That's what you want. And she attributes this to $1 million sales success because they never let any leads trip through their fingers. And it's a huge success factor in her business. 65% of established home professional businesses report that they rely upon repeat and referral clients for the majority of their sales, right? And there's a high level of you here now who are B2B. This is very true for you, I'm sure, right? If you're B2B, you rely on those. So we want to make sure that we are building these ability to land that first appointment so that we can get more appointments in the future. If we don't convert that first time hand raiser into a client, we miss out on all the rest of their lifetime value. So again, not just the cost of that mislead, but the entire lifetime value of that client is gone when we fumble the ball on this one simple factor. So the next thing I want to cover with you are a couple of the necessary structures to win more sales. But before I go on to this segment, just want to give you, just to wrap up on that booking strategy, just want to give you clear outline of a couple of the things. You want to be really, really mindful of when you're following up. I talked to you about that, but also be mindful of the technologies you're using and follow up more than you think you should, right? That's the quick summary of those booking ones, because even if we're following up 1, 2 times, that is not enough, right? And remember that this is a form of serving your client. And the more service-based you are, the more this should resonate with you in terms of service. Now, once you have that appointment, once you got that booked, right, now we have increased success in that level. Next thing to look at is the actual appointment itself. And there's a couple of structures that I wanted to give you that you can look to and evaluate for yourself to see if you can make some shifts here that you can start winning more sales or converting your sales more effectively during your busy season. Again, remember, without getting in front of your leads, you just simply can't serve them. They're not available to you if you don't get that booked, that appointment booked. And then, of course, without selling to them, you can't serve them. So sales truly is the doorway into the service. And when you don't close your prospects, when you leave those leads hanging, you really are hurting the profitability and the revenue of your business. And in my perspective, sales truly is the highest form of service, because it's the doorway. You can't get to the service without the sale. And a client isn't asking you to come out because they're perfectly happy, right? Especially the B2C sales. When you're selling to consumers, selling in home, the client is having you there because there's something that's not right. There's something that they're suffering from. You know, maybe suffering is a big way of looking at it, but they're suffering in your area, right? There's pain in the thing that you can solve. And not serving them is really, truly a disservice, because they are still left with the problem unless you make them an offer that they say yes to. So many, 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 many people, the majority of the people with whom I work, hate the idea of on-the-spot selling because they feel that it's pushy. When I say on-the-spot selling, I do not mean pushing your client into a decision. I am all about having integrity and inspiring your client to take action, not trying to manipulate them into a decision. So the thing that people shy away from and is the ask. The thing that they don't go for is the close. I've been on sales call after sales call after sales call where they simply do not go for the sale. And the truth is that the customer can't have what they want when you don't do that, when you don't sell, when you don't go for the close. And there are a lot of pathways to the sale, to a successful sale. And as I mentioned, we have a very, very strong bias. I teach with a very strong bias for on-the-spot selling. And the reason that I am strongly biased towards on-the-spot selling is that you can direct the conversation in a way to a predictable outcome. And it saves on so many levels. But remember that on-the-spot selling does not necessarily mean a one-call close. If you need to leave your client to draw up the proposal to make the quote, what I'm inviting you to do is to come back to them and close in person. So maybe a better terminology is an in-person sale rather than leaving it to happen over email or phone calls. Making sure that you become a tangible entity for this client is really important to the success and how many closed appointments, how many closed sales you actually are ending up with on the books. So the reason it's the most effective way to make your offer is that you have momentum on your side. When you are there, when you've guided this conversation, you have momentum and you want to leverage that. And also remember, nonverbal feedback, what people don't say, their facial expressions, the tone of their voice, their body language, their mood, nonverbal, 80% of communication. And if you're not in front of them, you cannot see those things and you cannot react to them or respond to them in a way that clears away the hurdles and lets your client say yes. On-the-spot selling also creates a lot of opportunity to discuss, adjust, add, adapt. One of my clients, simply by closing her deals on the spot, increased her average sales price by 37.5%. 37.5%. That is a lot of money that she made in her business and that her salespeople started to make for her because they added on-the-spot selling. Now, of course, you have to have the technology to do it, and not every project is available for on-the-spot selling. But what I'm telling you is that even if you can't do it in a one-call close, at least make it a two-stage offering where you're going back and you're closing the deal in person. Some of the benefits for you are that lets you move on to fulfillment, right? Lets you get that product ordered and move on. It's great for your cash flow. You're collecting that down payment check right then and there. And of course, it frees up your time because you don't have to send 8 zillion emails and get out for phone calls and so on. It's just methodical. You make an appointment and you set the next follow-up appointment to close the sale with them. And there's very little time wasted in the follow-up mode, which is just like that hamster wheel of follow-up for your bookings. And of course, for your client, and this is the piece that most companies overlook, and especially if you have a sales team, it's really helpful for your sales team to see the service in the sale so that they feel relief in making this on-the-spot offer or closing your client in person so that there's less tension behind it. So it does produce peace of mind. Like I said, they called you because they had a problem, and when you solve it, they don't have to keep looking. As a consumer, again, put yourself in their shoes, it does not feel good to be wondering what you're going to be doing and to constantly be looking at more and more and more quotes from more and more and more vendors. It gets really confusing. And remember that your clients are not used to buying your products. This is something they don't do every day. So the more relief you can provide, the better. Takes them out of that really painful place of indecision and overload. And then, of course, it frees up their time, right? If your time is spent in follow-up, their time is too. So it frees up their time. And in survey after survey after survey, the most meaningful thing that people rank, like most important thing, is time, right? It's not money. It's not anything else. It's time, because you can't make more of it. And then, of course, it's just a huge relief. It feels really good. So many of my clients have said that when they learn how to sell on the spot, when they start to do it, they end up with really raving fans, and their clients are so happy and excited. They don't feel had. They don't feel like they got raked over the coals or that someone pulled a fast one on them. They feel profoundly served and supported because of the way that it's done. When you use a solid, systematic approach to leading that appointment, the sale feels like the natural conclusion of the conversation. So this is the key point when you use a systematic approach. Now, if you try to do on-the-spot selling without it, if you pull the backbone out, which is the system, which is the process, the cadence that you follow, when to ask, what to ask, how does it go, how does it flow, when you yank that out, what you end up with, the outcome that you end up with is this. It feels imposing, it feels uncomfortable, it feels awkward, it feels pushy, and it just feels overall bad. It feels bad on both sides of the table. It feels bad to the consumer and it feels bad to the salesperson. And it's why most salespeople do not like to sell on the spot, because they feel that it implies all of these conditions, all of these emotional responses. The truth of the matter is, especially when you're dealing with homeowners, you're not making a logic-based sale. You're taking them through an emotional and difficult decision-making process that logic has to support it, right? Can't just be totally illogical, it's not. But emotions carry a very heavy weight. And when we don't mind that process, when we don't clearly let it be systematically approached, then we are not honoring the fact that we're taking them on this journey. And when we miss key pieces, of course, we simply don't sell. So one of the temptations that many companies, almost all, fall into is hiding behind email, right? Is this a temptation that you have? Are you tempted just, oh, I'll email you a quote? Whenever you email a quote to someone, what you do is you put their decision right back into the logic category. But don't forget, this is not solely logic-based. This is supported by logic, but it's emotionally based decision for consumers, because this is their home. This is where they're going to live. The stakes are much higher. But when you send a quote, what do? What do? They open the quote, they open the attachment, they scan right down to the cost, the bottom line. What's it going to cost them? They start to look at it as a price game. But here's the dirty secret, right? That price in these types of decisions only represent 20% of the actual facts that people use to make their choice, right? If price were the only factor, if that were it, then I would say mail everything, email everything. But I want to discourage you from trying to close sales primarily through email, or with email as your only vehicle or your primary vehicle. Now, that's not to say that you cannot leverage email, but what I want you to do, especially for your big projects, if this is over and above your normal average sales price, please go back and present your quote in person. Even if you email it to them, book that follow-up appointment before you even leave the first appointment. Book that follow-up appointment, whether it's a phone call or an in-person meeting. Strong bias for the latter, but at least a phone call is better than nothing, where they will have had the quote in their hands less than 24 hours, right? 12 hours is a great window, and you can review it with them. And you can go over their questions and their concerns, and you can rebuild that momentum and go for the close. Because the tension of that close, that awkward silence between the, how would you like to pay for this check or credit card? Or Mrs. Jones, is this a yes for you? Ready to move forward? The awkward silence that ensues is the tension that draws them forward into a yes. And when we talk, and when we fill that tension up with noise, we dilute the sale, and we don't walk away with as much success. So we need to be able to stand there quietly. We're not doing nothing. We're holding space for them to step up. We're letting them choose so that they can feel really good and empowered about their choice. And being quiet is not doing nothing. It's allowing your client the space that they need to make this decision. So I like to tell Jamie's story here because it lands really nicely. So Jamie was not selling on the spot at all whenever we first started working together. And she was actually in a constant state of emailing for quotes and of fighting on price. Not fighting, but feeling pressured on price. It was one of her biggest questions. And when she started to own the value that she brought and to follow a systematic approach to sales, this is the win that she brought to one of our coaching calls. In one day, she closed $13,000 of sales with on-the-spot asks, right? And the benefit of this is that she had never, ever, ever had a single day of that much sales in her business, and she'd never done it without getting caught in that follow-up loop. And for her, being able to get across to the customer the value of what she was bringing changed everything. But using a system and having a step-by-step approach to leverage let her know how to weave all those elements in a way that empowered the choice of the customer. The system is what builds the confidence and builds that crescendo towards the sale. That approach of understanding really, 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 truly, and clearly the stakes for the client. And so many of us are tempted to ask questions and zone out because we already know the answer, right? It's one of the temptations of salespeople to know the answer. And when we avoid that temptation, we really listen, then we can have really great solutions that our customers become raving fans because we're making it their own, making them part of the process. We're co-creating something for their home that they really feel attached to and inspired to say yes to. And it's in having a systematic, methodical approach to the conversation and leading that conversation instead of passing the reins over to them, really owning it and leading it, that we can have better outcomes. And another person who had a great example of this is Nick. And before Nick joined our Fast Track Sales Systems program, he actually was closing about 30%. His business, comes from a family of serial entrepreneurs, but this was the first time that he was doing in-home selling. And he just didn't know what he was doing, just winging it every time. And so many people are, right? That's what I told you at the beginning. We're all making it up as we go along. The winging it isn't bad. But there comes a point in your business where in order to grow, you need to leverage those conversations more, increase that average sales price, increase your close rate, and specifically train salespeople how to do it too. And without a system, all of that completely falls apart. So I think that Nick, we've had hundreds of people through the program, and I think that Nick is one of our most staunch fast trackers. Like, he follows a system to a T every time, doesn't deviate. And what it's produced for him, and this is kind of an old one, it's a little outdated, it's less than 6 months old, but still he's had even better success now. 100% close rate, 30 sales in a row, right? 30 sales in a row. And for him and his business and his sales reps, what changed here was the process of walking the customer through, knowing with confidence what comes next. Because whenever you show up with confidence and you know where this conversation is going, you know which pieces to ask when, your customer relaxes because you relax. They feel safe in your hands. Have you ever watched a really young kid, like a 2-year-old, hold a newborn baby? What does a newborn do? It squirms and cries because it's afraid it's going to be dropped. Because strong likelihood, if a 2-year-old's not watched, it could drop a baby, right? They don't understand the implications. And the same thing happens when we do not know what's coming next. So we're not clear about that path. Our client doesn't feel as safe in our hands. And trust is where that transaction happens. Feeling safe, feeling secure, being able to trust that you're going to give them that outcome is a huge component of being able to create that success for your client and help them step up and say yes to the project. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? The wheel already exists. All we need to do is upgrade what we've got. So I know that, many of you have been doing it for a long time, already kind of have your jam down. What I want to challenge you to do is, even if you've got your own jam down, figure out what the system is that's supporting it, because it's very likely that you can boil down all your steps into a system that you can map out. And I want to give you some key elements, signs of a solid system, where if you don't have one, go find one, right? There are people that have them available. Go find them. And if you already have a high level of sales success, I would say find your own method to the madness and break it down into these components. So a solid system will give you consistently excellent results, right? That's the first sign of a solid and good sales system. I like to say that systems make sales, and the very, very best systems weave in all of the things that it takes. For instance, building that credibility, being able to listen to what it is that they need. So that's why it gives you those great results, because it's built into the fabric of the system itself. Next step, and this is a key one for those of you who have sales reps and who are growing and want to do more, simple enough to teach anyone, right? The person with the right affect, the right approach, the conversational or good people skills, you can teach anyone to sell, right? Anyone who's willing and who has the right mindset, you can teach them to sell. And your system should be easy enough to teach the people that are coming on board. It should not, yes, the craft, the trade, what you do is harder to teach and to master, but it should not take you months and months and months to teach them how to sell, right? The how to sell piece should be the piece that goes the easiest because you have it broken down into a system. If you don't have it broken down into a system, what you end up doing is having people shadow you forever, and then they pick up what they pick up, right? That's not a very, very good way to help them zero in on what's most necessary to close that sale. Third one is it anticipates key objections, hurdles, and delays. Now, objections are going to happen. And great news, guys, objections are a buying signal. So yay, celebrate those objections. When someone raises an objection, you have got a serious buyer on your hands. So great news that people are raising objections. And the same goes, by the way, for B2B selling. When you have someone who's raising objections, they would not be wasting their time asking you these questions, providing pushback, unless they were inviting you to step up. So anticipates those key objections. You are going to have objections. Think about the ones you always get and make sure that you're asking the questions in the beginning to avoid getting your butt kicked at the end by those objections. The fourth one, and this is key for me, is that it honors the client and the relationship. So in the beginning, especially those first 5 critical moments, making sure that you're not just building rapport by asking, throwaway questions, but you really do cement the trust and solidify that trust with the client right up front and establish yourself as the expert so they feel safe in your hands. And last but certainly not least, there's no need to throw away what you're doing. You're already doing things well. You want a system that can adapt to what you're already doing. So you can take the areas that you're really strong and strengthen them, and take the areas where you might be a little bit weaker and fill those gaps. And when you start to look at this and when you evaluate what you're doing and what you have going on in the field from the perspective of, do we have the right system in place? Do we have a process? Do our salespeople rock their process? And is it supporting their outcomes? Right? What is their close rate looking like? You can end up with a huge impact to your top line because it is in the systematic approach and honoring those appointments and converting more of those appointments into converting the leads into appointments that you can get in front of more people and increase your sales. Can make more from your busiest season whenever you really institute a more solid systematic approach. And last benefit of a system, one of the things that not on the slide, but it's a major benefit, it gives you a really powerful way to evaluate your team, to be able to see how your team is doing and give you an objective way to give them feedback, and an objective way to even evaluate yourself, to take emotion out of it because you have a system and you can match up what did they do versus how should they have done according to the system, right? It really gives you that leverage. So one of my clients said a system takes the overwhelm out of the way. So it can feel overwhelming to have all the questions and what should you ask and when should you ask it? Oh, and by the way, and then I got to ask my husband. Oh, I got to double check on this and that. And it's a lot, right? First of all, you got all the technical side of the product, and then you've got the actual selling of it. It can feel like a lot. So a system actually relieves that tension by handling those things and you not having to worry about them. Lets you relax a little and dive into creating connection with the actual customer. And then again, remember those 3 critical ways to grow your business. Right now, during season, you have more customers coming in your doors. Make sure you're leveraging the most of it. Make sure that you're really paying attention to, do you have a solid way of converting those inbound leads to appointments? Is that a strength in your business? And if it isn't, we actually have a checklist that goes along with this, which Katie will be sending out to you. She's spearheading this entire program, so she will be sending out to you, they'll be sending out to you the checklist that goes along with it to help you think about how often are you calling them? Are you leveraging the modalities that you have at hand? And are you using the timing to your best advantage, time of day to the best of your advantage? That first, more customers. Right now, you are creating the customers who are going to fill up that last bucket, your repeat customers and your referral customers. And that is the opportunity inside of your business today, is to capture more of those leads and to increase that the sales value of each of those leads, so that the long-term value of them is already built in to your process, that because you're captivating more of them from the very get-go. So the two structures to be necessary structures, and one of the reasons that I spent a lot of time today talking about the value of getting in front of the customer, the value of that appointment, why we need to do it, what it means to the customer, is that the mental preparation, going in there knowing that serving this client means selling to them, like being convinced that the sale really is the greatest part of the service. I've seen that convince and that confidence level be a key game changer for sales teams, be a really significant game changer when they understand that sale does not mean it's all service, right? It's all service. And when you have that mental preparation, and you're technically prepared to make an on-the-spot offer, and you're mentally prepared to do that, and you see the gift in the service, you will start to organically watch the results in your business shift, even if you don't do the second step, right? The second step is to have a proven system to support your efforts. And that's a really necessary structure, because that's what will give you the consistency, and you know it every single time. You can count on the predictability, you can count on the repeatability, because it's the system itself that carries the integrity of the process. And when I talk about a system, it's the steps, which is the process, what you're going to do, it's the how you're going to do it, and it's the why behind it, right? And also integrating in all those things, that you have all those pieces together. So that's what we had planned for you today, to share a little bit about making the most of your busy season by truly converting more of those leads into prospects. And I have one quick thing before you go. I have one more poll for you that I'd like to share with you. This is a feedback poll, and we actually use this poll. So click on the bottom of your screen for the feedback poll. We use this poll to be able to drive future content. And don't worry, be as honest as you can, because whenever we get this feedback, we know if we were really on target, or if we need to retool, we need to adjust. This is our first shot out the gate, trying to provide for you the time and the information that you need to be able to grow your business according to what you said you wanted, right? Some of these best practices. And just remember that if you change just one thing around the way you book appointments, you can create a huge impact in your business, because you can capture more of those leads from the beginning and secure their long-term effect. So again, the poll is live still. Going to leave it live here for another minute while I go on to this very last slide. Just want to make an invitation to you for more of our content. We have a whole series planned for you, and we're actually going to be doing kickoff, official kickoff. This is kind of like the pre-kickoff, but let's do one during season, because we know you're all busy. Let's make sure that we have more time together. And don't worry, I am going to stay here live for your questions. So if you have them, please put them in the Q&A, because I'm here live with you. And as long as the questions are coming in, I will stay live. I don't have another engagement after this, so I'm here all for you. But I wanted to invite you to the WDDA Window and Door Dealer Day on September 13th in Las Vegas. It's going to be a great event. I'm going to actually be speaking there live. So if you liked me last year, want to see more of me, if you liked me on this webinar, I'll be there. But there'll also be more people than just me. It's not going to be the Madeline show. It's the Dealer Day show. So I want to make sure that you mark off your calendars, start looking at this event, get the information you need, and book your flights and join us live for the show in Las Vegas, because that will be a really, really great time. So will the recording be emailed to us? Yes, you will get access to the recording. That's one of the benefits of being a WDDA member, is that these are actually all recorded events, and they are going to be available to you as a member benefit as part of a library of content that we will be enhancing. And not every single webinar that we do is going to be about sales, right? There's lots of topics that you requested, and we're going to be having those future ones later in the year as well. And they will all be recorded and be able to be watched. And yes, those will be directly emailed to you. So does anybody else have any more questions or want to share an aha? If you open that little questions tab also on the bottom, if you clicked on the poll, you also got you got the ability to see the poll. So Thank you so much for your poll responses. And also, one of the things that's kind of a fun way to end, rather than just questions, is also to do ahas. Was there one specific thing that you loved that you're taking away with from today that you can respond to? And also, one of the quick little things while I'm doing this, so I was just leading a sales challenge with a group of dealers over the last couple of days, and one of the things we talked about is follow-up. And I know that we talked about that a little bit tangentially today, but while you're filling in, click on that Q&A tab and give me a couple ahas. I'd like to share them with the group. It's kind of fun. So while I'm waiting for you guys to fill those in, or to ask those, or to answer those, put those in, let me share this with you. Don't forget that people often settle for the status quo. And when they don't purchase from you, specifically a homeowner, when a homeowner doesn't purchase from you, 60% of unclosed sales settle for the status quo. Unless there's some urgent reason for them to do it, unless it's an emergency, they settle for the status quo, what they've already got. So don't forget, even during this busy season, that your unclosed leads, your unclosed sales are a huge opportunity for you, that at least 60% of those are still available projects that if you exert some tenacity in following up with them, just as you would with a new lead, you can also impact that top line result pretty significantly. So whenever I related the story of the woman who had her best sales day ever when she owned the value of what she was selling and not feeling pressured on price, aha moment for that. Thank you for that. Yes. Isn't that cool when you really know how good you are and you show up? That the lady, her name is Jamie. When Jamie first started working with me, her biggest question was, how do I compete against big box, right? How do I compete against those people who are just killing me on price? And what she realized is you don't compete on price, right? You live by price, you die by price. If that's the only thing, if that's your only competitive advantage, then you're really cutting yourself so short. You compete on value, and it changed everything in her business. Aha moment was follow through, not follow up. It's a matter of semantics, but it makes a lot of sense. Yes, it is. And when we say semantics, don't cut yourself short on the semantics piece, because language matters. The vocabulary that you use matters, right? When you talk about cost or price, those are pretty triggering words for a lot of people. Money is a hot topic for people. But when you talk about investment, that feels like, ooh, that feels really good. Where cost or price might make them shy away, the word of investment, just shifting that one little vocabulary word, changes so much. When you're dealing with discounts and incentives, talking about them as bonuses, add-ons, that feels so good. And it might seem like semantics, it might seem slight and small and not that important, but it really does change how someone hears what you say and how they perceive what you're telling them. All right, everybody, I'm going to stay here for just another couple of seconds, see if anyone has any more questions or any ahas you'd like to share. It's kind of fun to share the ahas, because then I get to give you more, because what I'm noticing that you're enjoying allows me to give you more right here in this session. And also, if you have not done the poll around the feedback around the program, that would be great if you could. And if there aren't any more ahas that anyone would like to share, you can click on the Q&A tab and go ahead and share that live with us. I'm going to just shut it down here in a second. We just end the poll so everyone can see that. All right, beautiful. People thought it was a good 23% thought that was excellent. 46% of you thought it was good, and then 31% of you at least thought it was an okay use of your time. So excellent. Glad to see that. Glad to see that. Thank you so much for your feedback. Okay, so we don't have any more ahas or any more questions. So again, thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar training. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the WDDA Window and Door Dealer Day in Las Vegas, Thursday, September 13th. And until then, happy selling and make today a really, really great day. Thanks, everybody. Bye.